We have a great episode for you today. We are drinking bourbons from the first female distiller since Prohibition. We also have a bourbon that comes from a financial bro who decided, hey, I'm bored, let's make some bourbon. Stick around to the end. You'll figure out how the teddy bear is related to hunting and a rich kid from New York who has never hunted before. Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. I'm Jason. This is Bradford. Here we are again on the porch, smoking cigars, drinking bourbon, always with Kimber, who's all tired from a recent trip.
Thanks, Jason. Glad to be with you today on the porch.
As always.
We're going to smoke some Opus X cigars, which we've done before. Yeah. It's Arturo Fuentes.
Your favorite.
They are. It's their high-end cigar, and I love Fuente. And we're going to pair them today with a couple of high-end whiskeys. We've got Forbidden, which, if you recall, if you've watched previous episodes or listened to us previously when we did Sweetens Cove, Marianne Eaves, who was the first female distiller since Prohibition, she has distilled her own whiskey, and Excellent. It's Forbidden. It was released just this past year.
I've not had it. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I do too. And Frank August, which is probably the most popular new bourbon on the market. And this was a brainchild of a New York financier who had the idea during COVID that he was going to just introduce a new whiskey. And he's done so with a great deal of fanfare and popularity. So it's an award-winning bourbon. And so look forward to tasting both of those. And we're really going to talk today about hunting. Talk about the trip you just recently took.
Oh, we had a great trip. Kimber is all worn out. For those who are listening and not watching, she's laying here on the porch. So she and I went out to Promise City, Iowa. Great place to pheasant hunt. We went pheasant hunting. Shout out to Heritage 1865. It's called that because the family has owned this land since 1865. It was a government land grant back in the day. 3-4 generations have lived on this land. They've gone through hard times. They are originally farmers, and then over the years had to do different things to make ends meet. And they came up with hunting, specifically pheasant hunting. This is CRP land. This is land put in reserve for the preservation of game. It's difficult to find them, difficult to get through this. This is not walking through grass. This is, uncut fields that you're walking through. And so you need dogs. This is much more difficult to hunt without dogs. So they would have, and there's different types of dogs, so some guys use pointers. We use both pointers and labs. And so the pointers will cover a lot of ground and find the bird.
And what do they do when they find a bird, Jason?
They literally point.
Hence the name.
Hence the name. And so the pointers are great at finding game. They cover a lot of ground. They were generally German short-hair pointers. GSPs for short, cover a lot of ground, but what they're not good at is flushing the bird or finding the bird once it's down. So hence that's where the labs come in. So the group that we're out there with is from Wildrose Kennels. Wildrose Kennels, if you don't know, great place. They've gotten the most notoriety right now because
where are they based?
Oxford. Well, they're all over the U.S., but they started in Oxford, Mississippi. They have a place down in Texas, one in Minnesota, one in North Carolina. But Wildrose Kennels is the gentleman's sports dog, or gentleman's hunting dog. And so it's a dog that will sit with you on the porch, in this case, but also go out with you in the field. And they're just the best all-around dog. They've gotten a lot of notoriety lately because if you are a football fan, if you're specifically an Ole Miss football fan, Juice, the Lane Kiffin's dog, that's a Wildrose dog.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So they've gotten a lot of PR from that.
Well,
so,
incidentally, shout out to the great state of Iowa, where you would have the amber waves of grain in a very literal sense. But also, other than hosting your hunting event, they produce more than half of America's consumption of pigs. So if you like bacon, most of that's coming from the state of Iowa.
Well, and hats off to them. So, because we do like some bacon around here.
Well, and it makes sense because going back to the amber waves of grain, they're a huge corn producer, and so a lot of agricultural production from a hog standpoint is where can they ship grain from? And it's all in the middle part of the country, and so you have a lot of hogs that get grown in Iowa.
Yeah. So besides making bourbon, cornfields are great for pheasant hunting as well. Pheasant love cornfields, and so and if you've seen corn that's not been chopped yet, the stalks are still standing. It's hard to hunt in there, and so you need a dog to get in there and find those birds.
So let me ask you this. So I want to talk about kind of why are you going pheasant hunting? You don't see that in a grocery store, so it's not. I mean, we're truly wild game at that point.
Absolutely. 100% wild game.
So before you answer that question, let's taste the Forbidden.
Oh, absolutely.
I really am excited about
Thank
this. By the way, this is about $120, $130 a bottle. Right now, it's readily available. If it gets popular, it won't be. That's pretty simple.
That's what happens with bourbons. They get good, they get popular, and then they're just gone.
Yeah, and by the way, both of these are beautiful bottles. If you can't see them, if you're not watching, you just take our word for it. But Frank August was very particular about having no adornment on the bottle. It's very plain. It's a beautiful glass bottle. And then Forbidden is kind of an unusual shape. I was going to say octagonal, and that's probably accurate. But it makes it distinctive when you're looking in the store for this particular bottle. So really cool.
That is not octagonal, by the way. That's 8 sides. That's much more. But anyway, it's a beautiful bottle that Marianne described there.
Thanks, Jay. Are you going to measure the bottle now?
No, it's just a hex shape. It's like a hex screwdriver head.
There we go.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. So what do you think of this Forbidden? You have to give an opinion when asked.
Yeah, so I'm cogitating.
There's a lot of
a lot of cogitating. So not much of a nose. It's a little windy out today on the porch, so maybe I'm missing it, but not a bad nose, just not a big nose to it. But then when you, but the taste, wow, the taste has a lot of flavor to it.
Yeah, and this is a 95 proof, so it's not a real high proof. You're not going to want to water it down or put ice in it necessarily. Should be smooth enough that you can handle this neat, which is how we typically taste bourbon. And incidentally, we learned this, I don't know if we've mentioned it on the podcast, when we did a tasting, they do 1/4 ounce pours, which is almost what we end up drinking because we're talking so much while we're doing the podcast. If you go to a bar, drinks are used, if you order it neat or, order a cocktail, they use a standard 2 ounce pour.
Right.
And so
your motivation is different at the bar than here on the porch.
That's true. And you're going to be there for a while and you're going to drink one thing. So
when I taste a bourbon, for whatever reason, I typically taste vanilla and cinnamon more than anything else. But I'm tasting more of a smoke and pepper here. In a good way. I don't mean that bad, actually. I enjoy this quite nicely.
Yeah, I would say this is a really good bourbon. I don't know if you were doing a blind taste test that I would be able to decipher that this is so much different than other things we've had.
So this almost tastes like a Scotch whiskey than a bourbon whiskey.
I wouldn't go that far. It still, to me, has a whole lot more sweetness than a Scotch would.
All right, well, fair enough.
And to that point, we're going to try some Scotches. We've not gotten into those, so
yeah,
we'd love to try some Irish whiskey. We'd love to try some Scotch, and to tease a future episode, we have bought Indian whiskey, which you had pointed out earlier, Jason, is the most prominent whiskey maker in the world.
Yeah. And since we're talking about future podcasts, we're having a great time on the porch. We really hope you subscribe and like us because we want to keep on doing this. And to that point, one of our listeners, Bert, has asked us to try some Weller, specifically 12-year-old Weller.
Mm.
And and Bert, that's a great idea. We've got 12-year-old Weller, we've got special reserve Weller, and one of my favorites is CYPB. That's something that most people, that's create your own perfect bourbon that Weller came up with.
Yeah,
So
probably the hardest to obtain of that
it
group.
is. It's
We
it's
also have some Antique 107 and Full Proof.
yeah, so some unattainable type stuff. Thank you, Bert, for the suggestion. Like and subscribe because you don't want to miss that episode. And Bert, thank you for making that suggestion and for that shout out to us. We're going to send you some T-shirts and a hat, and that'll be coming your way. You can go to our website, see what that looks like. But thank you, Bert. We appreciate your shout out there.
And we did not intentionally leave out the single barrel selection. We've chosen not to include that. We didn't pick out that barrel.
Right, and because again,
Maybe you should do that, Jason.
do a single barrel selection. Oh, that would be a great field trip. That would be. I don't know if Weller would have us, but wow, I would love to.
That
do
would be cool.
But again, the problem with single barrels is that a single barrel, and
Right.
and from barrel to barrel, you get a little bit of different taste. These distilleries will mix their barrels to create their flavor. So if you pick out a single barrel, maybe great, I taste this single barrel and you taste another one, they're going to be different bourbons. So that's why we intentionally avoided this single barrel Weller. Nothing against it. It's just, from barrel to barrel, it'll have a slightly different taste.
So let's go back to the question I asked about pheasant. You're not
Yep.
seeing that in a grocery store. So tell me about, what's the point of hunting a bird like that?
Well, there's lots of reasons for it, but you bring up the grocery store. If you go to the grocery store, you basically get the choice of beef, chicken, pork. Nothing wrong with those things. They're actually quite good. I'm a big fan of beef and pork. All right, bacon's great. So, but sometimes you want something a little different. Moreover, everybody kind of likes the idea of having, like with chicken, you want the antibiotic-free, free-range chicken. That's great. I can appreciate and respect that. But what about free-range antibiotic other animals, such as pheasant? That's kind of the ultimate in wild game in general is kind of the ultimate of that. Hunters historically have been the biggest advocates for preserving game, most notably Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt, when he was president, he was the first one to establish national parks and to eliminate commercial game hunting. And because of that, we have wild game today. Back in the 1920s, game was being hunted to extinction because a guy making a living would go out and shoot, hundreds of ducks and then go sell that duck meat on the market. And so what Teddy Roosevelt saw, especially out in what's now Denali, saw that, hey, this game is going away. And so he set up, these national parks and preservation of game, and as well as the abolishment of selling of wild game. But I would tell you there's something that's hard to explain about going out and putting food on the table yourself. It's kind of not a rite of passage. It's something of like, just if you built something yourself, if you built,
a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, you built this car, you built this house, you built this porch, a fence. You have a sense of pride in that. But not only that, it's fun. You do it. I did it with my father, right? I grew up hunting with my dad. Kimber and I are hunting together. We are not hunting alone. There were other hunters with us, and because it's you have to cover this huge area, so it's this team approach, and shooting the game. And at the end of the day, you get, in this case, pheasant. It's a great free range antibiotic-free, sustainable source of food. People talk a lot about sustainability. Hunters, we're talking hunters, not poachers. Poachers are the people who shoot over their limit, shoot things they're not supposed to shoot. Hunters are the ones who respect the game the most, who shoot within the limits, because we want to see the species propagate. We want to continue. So it's a sustainable source of food. If the animal, whatever you're hunting, dies in the field of natural causes, it's not the end of the world, but that's a lost resource. A farmer would never grow corn, say. We were talking about corn earlier.
And not harvest it.
Right. You wouldn't just let the corn rot in the field. No. So ideally, you would harvest that animal right before it dies, because it's already produced its progeny, and now you use that as a food source.
Yeah. So that's a good point in talking about Teddy Roosevelt, because he was a celebrity to some degree beyond his political.
Yeah.
So
Rough Rider.
Yeah, a quick
character.
history lesson. He was president from 1900 to 1908. He's the youngest president in the nation's history, becoming so with the assassination of William McKinley in 1900, or 1901, excuse me, shortly after inauguration. So Teddy Roosevelt served almost 2 full terms, only one of which he was elected. He ran again under a third party in 1912 as the Bull Moose Party, which was a throwback to his hunting. But what became most popular was the teddy bear. People talk about their teddy bears today, and it was because he refused to shoot a baby bear.
Yep.
And to your point about which animals are you choosing to shoot and which are you not, he really was about the conservation. He understood then, I'm not going to shoot an animal that's going to grow up and produce more bears.
That's exactly right. So everybody's welcome to the porch, and so we especially welcome people who know nothing about hunting,
which would include me.
Yeah, exactly. So put it in layman's terms, the animal that you're shooting is grandpa, right? You're not shooting the old female. You're not even shooting the young female or young male. You're shooting the old male that has already produced and is basically living out his last days waiting to die. So in pheasant hunting, for example, you don't shoot hens. The male is very brightly colored. The hen, with birds, this is generally true. The male is always brightly colored to attract a mate. The females are not very attractive. In pheasants, they're a dull brown. So you don't shoot hens ever. You only shoot males. And so by that way, you don't affect the population. You hunt in the fall. You don't hunt in the spring, because that's when they're producing. And so it's this total propagation of hunting.
Yeah, I think where we hear one of those terms most frequently today, and it may have died because we're a little older than most, but you hear, men peacocking around trying to attract. And that's really because when you see a peahen, they're more dull in color, and a peacock is going to extend their feathers trying to attract a mate.
The male's trying to...
so that's made it into the vernacular to some degree.
So Teddy Roosevelt, the kind of the one thing I really respected about him, he went to the military, but, Teddy Roosevelt was a rich boy from New York.
Yeah.
Who went to Harvard. It's not like he grew up hunting with his dad or his family tradition. He was just he was a wealthy family who went to Harvard, well educated, but he found hunting later in life.
So before we get any further, because I want to ask you about some of the big game you've hunted for, as you've talked about that. Let's try this Frank August. We tasted the Forbidden, which was really good. So the Frank August, which is about $80 a bottle. And again, if it gains in popularity, and he will have other expressions of this, but this is really, I think, the only thing he's doing currently. So about $80 a bottle. It'll go up if it gains in popularity.
So usually I've done my homework. I know something about these, and plus in my time I've had a few bourbons. I know nothing about Frank August. Who is Frank August?
So it's a name that the owner of the bourbon put on it. It's
Made up name?
yeah, it's I think it's in honor of a couple of people that he knew, not particularly a Frank August. It was a Frank and an August. So he just thought it was a catchy name to put on a bourbon.
Is it Auguste? Like it's in bold?
No, it was August, and that's just hence the name. As I mentioned, he was a New York financier, had the idea of putting a bourbon together, got connected with the right people in Kentucky, including political connections, which are important. Sourced it through MGP, was very careful about doing that, has distilled his own, and I think what we're tasting now is part of what they had distilled. It would be a fairly young distillation because it started in 2020. And this is a recent release. So you're looking at, 3, maybe 4 years aged. So you've had a chance to taste it. What are your thoughts?
Yes. And so this goes back to what I was saying earlier. I love a good vanilla bourbon that finishes with a little cinnamon, and that's exactly what this is. This is nice. It has to me, this has more of a nose. It's in a very inviting nose. And then this is great. This is good stuff. It goes down well between the two. I like the Forbidden, but this is better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It immediately hit me as I want to drink more of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got all of those notes that you described, and it makes me want to come back and have more, whereas the Forbidden is kind of a take it or leave it. It's good, but it doesn't distance itself or distinguish itself from others that we've tried that are also good, whereas this Frank August may be something that's a little different.
Yeah. This is So
I would highly recommend this, especially at the price point.
Yeah, I mean, I've had literally a couple of drinks, but wow, this is something to buy before the crowd comes.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. It'd be great if we had some paid endorsement for that, but we don't.
No, that's the great thing about Two Guys on the Porch. We are literally two guys on the porch drinking bourbons, having fun together, hanging out as friends as we had for several decades. And so, we shoot you straight, tell you what we like and what we don't like.
So I want to get back to the big game. I remember taking my kids to the Field Museum in Chicago, which highly recommend it.
Oh, it's a cool place.
It is a cool place. And one of the things that's interesting about that is they profile all of these species of animal that are taxidermied. And it was really kind of at the birth of taxidermy. So there's almost an exhibit of that in and of itself. You can see the stitching on some of these animals.
Right. Yeah, some of it's pretty old, and so it wasn't very good back then.
That's right. And so it is what it is. By the way, the Ghost and the Darkness, those two.
I was going to mention that.
Yes.
I've seen. I personally went to the museum. So Ghost in the Darkness movie, great movie, line hunting movie. Val Kilmer and what's the other Michael?
I was going to say Val Kilmer, but that's as far as I can get.
Yeah, Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then our early role for the Black Gentleman, Ephraim, whatever. Great movie. And so it's about building a railroad across
in Africa.
I've forgotten which country, but they were literally being hunted, harassed, killed, the workers by a couple of lions. And so animals, generally speaking, only hunt for sustenance. These two lions were hunting for pleasure. They would eat some of, but they were just killing just because animals were killed.
So here's a great point. Yep. They've just recently done DNA testing on these lions. So the Ghost and the Darkness, as they were so named, are at the Field Museum, and they had DNA in their teeth. And so they pulled that out and found that it was indeed human flesh. And they also discovered that it was not so much pleasure as it was necessity. They were old lions who could not hunt any longer. They could not take down their normal game. And so humans were easier to catch and eat.
Yeah.
And so they did. And so to your point, because you've been to Africa, you've been big game hunting,
Yep.
and you've taken out animals that may have been participating in that kind of behavior.
Yeah, maybe so. I doubt it though.
You've not killed a lion, have you?
No, that's coming up, but not yet. I've tried. You know, hunting is hunting. It's not shooting, right? And so I've been on a lion hunt, but wasn't able to get one. And so for most parts, they'll if an animal, and that's this case, like the ghosts in the darkness, they will put those type of animals down if they become problematic. Nuisance animals is the politically correct term. If you have an elephant rampaging, villages taking out the crocs, they'll call it a nuisance animal.
Well, one thing I think that's really cool, because I bring up the Field Museum because what you get to see, and it really is an educational component, you get to see different species and variety of animal. Well, your basement's a bit the same way, Jason. If you really want an education in the different animals in the world and a beautiful display of them,
Yeah.
you've really done a fantastic job of that.
Well, thank you. So the good news is my taxidermist is better than one back in the 1900s.
Yes.
Film museum. So this is a pet peeve of mine though, is that the term trophy hunter. I really don't like that term, because trophy hunter has the connotation that you're going out and killing something for a trophy. And while that might be the case for some hunters, and I say that because I haven't met every hunter I have met does it for the adventure and for the game, for the meat. There's nothing that I have shot that I have not eaten, and that includes bear. Bear, if you're talking about meats that are bad to eat, grizzly bear is about the worst you can eat.
Greasy, from what I hear.
Yeah, it's not good at all. Even the Alaskan Fish and Game, who they're their department who runs and regulates hunting and fishing in Alaska. The rules are that the quote unquote the trophy part of the animal is the last thing you take out of the field. So when you go hunting in Alaska, it's very remote, obviously. And so they don't want wanton waste of game. That's a law. You cannot waste game. That's very much a law, and for the people who respect.
So if you kill it, you've got to utilize it.
Right, exactly. And it goes back to the spirit of Teddy Roosevelt, is that you just don't shoot something and just leave it laying in the field. Bear meat is bad. Bear meat is the exception. So, for instance, if you shoot, I don't know, Dall sheep, you have to carry out all the Dall sheep meat before you take out the horns and hide. For Dall sheep, that's not a big deal. If you're shooting a moose, that's a big deal. Moose is a big, big animal. It takes, I had the pleasure and honor of shooting a moose. It takes 3 pack horses to carry out that meat. And it is excellent meat to eat. And none of that goes to waste. But if you are in a spot, for instance, I went mountain goat hunting. Mountain goats, they stand on top of the mountain. They're white. You can see them from literally 10, 20 miles away. They look like lice on top of the mountain. And so you can see them. You're standing in the camp, and they're the mountain goats up there. But you got to get to them, and that is not easy. And for a guy who has run 15 marathons, it is a workout. You go up and down. So when I shot my mountain goat,
that's reason enough for me not to hunt there.
Yeah,
Jason.
well, here again, there's different hunting for everybody. So that maybe that's not your thing. But when I shot my mountain goat, we put it down, but we're running out of sunlight, and so we had, and we couldn't take, the mountain goat's big, and there's just 2 of us, and so we're packing the meat out. We couldn't get it all down, so we left the hide and horns up on the mountain. We had to make 2 trips, and hoping that the hide and horns were there the next day, because the brown bears, grizzly bears, Kodiak bears, they like some goat, and so We were hoping there was the next day. Fortunately, it was there. But bringing it the full circle back around, brown bear, grizzly bear, Kodiak bear, there's different subspecies. Um, that's the one meat that Alaskan Fish and Game does not make you take out of the field. You can actually leave that meat. It's a very greasy meat. Also, a lot of times we'll have a lot of parasites in the meat, so
Oh,
you got to
interesting.
really cook it thoroughly. You have your pictures of whatever vacation you go to. I can go to my moose mount, and I can see that moose. I shot it at 330 yards over a large marsh with a 7 millimeter Weatherby. I hunted for days and days for that, and so it's a memory of that hunt. That moose, once we put it down, we didn't waste anything. We gave some of the meat to rangers at the Denali Park, where that they use that. That's the meat they used through the entire winter. And then I took meat home. Nothing is wasted. It's all about the preservation of game and using a resource that historically we have underutilized. We do not hunt wild game like we used to, and it's just kind of a given. It's not a matter of beating your chest and saying, I'm a man, I have this on my wall. It's about the memory of that hunt and that sense of accomplishment, that great meals of bringing that meat back home to the family, enjoying it, grilling with the family, hunting with your family. It's a whole economy of hunting.
And talking about it on the porch.
Absolutely. Great talking about it on the porch.
So do you wear this hunting shirt? Those of you that are watching can see that this is a hunting shirt.
I'm just trying to keep up with you and trying to be cool.
It has kind of a shoulder plate, if you will.
So this is a shout out to Ball and Buck. Ball and Buck is a clothing company that respects and harkens back to the old-fashioned hunting of yesteryear. The father taking their grandchildren out into the field. That's another thing about hunting.
Do they make a left-handed version of that shirt?
For you, I'm sure they would. So shout out to Mark Bowman, owner of Ball and Buck. We want some left-handed hunting shirts for my buddy Bradford here. So this is a Ball and Buck shirt. They do they have great quality gear, all American made, and it lasts forever. I still have this. And full disclosure, I'm not on Ball and Buck's payroll here. I have hunting pants. So when Kimber and I were in Iowa, I was wearing my field pants and field shirt from Ball and Buck. I have yet to wear that out. I've been, I don't know how many hunts, dozens of hunts, where you're walking through briars, brush, and I cannot wear those pants out. It's brush pants. They are the toughest canvas pants I've ever had. And they last forever. So they're expensive. You get what you pay for, and wow, they last forever. So you can go on the Ball and Buck site, get some good clothes. But this is where I got this shirt.
So I want to ask about the trophy hunting. There was some controversy a few years ago of a dentist that went to Africa and killed a lion.
Yep.
So
Cecil the lion.
Yes, and I know that, and I don't remember anything other than there was controversy around it, but I know from talking to you, there are a lot of special regulations that have to be met if you're going into an African country to hunt. And it's a big part of their economy.
Absolutely is. So going back, we keep going back to Teddy Roosevelt. He was really visionary in this, is that as the population of humans goes up, there is this tendency to eradicate game, and for their not just for trophy hunting, just for their own sustenance. So countries in Africa have to deal a lot with poachers, be it elephants for the ivory, rhinos for the horn,
all of which is illegal.
All illegal, but it's people pay for that stuff. And so how do you, if you found yourself as the president of a poor African country, how do you pay for anti-poaching units to go out there and protect the game. So in Africa, they don't have a lot of crops, but they do have a lot of animals. And so their corn, if you will, are the game animals. They are a perishable commodity. If you don't hunt these animals, they will die in the field as a natural life. But that is a commodity for these countries, and so they offer hunts. So you as a hunter pay what's called a tag fee.
You're not just showing up and saying, I'm going to go hunt.
And this is expensive. I mean, the tag fees are substantial. Minimum 4 figures, a lot of times 5 figures, to go and hunt this animal. And so when you put that animal down, be it...
and you're going to hunt for a specific type of animal.
Well, you have it, it's all regulated, so it's very much what's on the menu, if you will.
I see.
You're hunting, so you don't know what you're going to get, what you're not going to get, but you have a tag, that a hunting license that includes certain species. Like, for instance, you can't go out there and hunt pangolin. Pangolin is a weird-looking scaled animal that's protected, so you don't get a license for that. But other animals that are somewhat protected, like leopard. I shot a leopard. That is a CITES animal, CITES, and it's a protected animal. It's an acronym. Forgot what it stands for. It doesn't make a difference. But you pay a specific tag fee for that. So, and I'm making it up. I don't remember what it is, but it's expensive. It's like $10,000. So once I shot that leopard, I'm obligated to pay the in this case, the country of Tanzania. I forgot where I went for a second. So Tanzania gets a specific fee for that animal, and on that trip, I'm paying for the salary of a Tanzania employee to come with me.
A government employee with his own GPS tracker, so that he knows. And after I put that animal down, and that government employee tracker is with me 24/7. And so once I put that animal down, he notates exactly when I shot it, the exact GPS location, and boom, Jason Hubbard is responsible for that tag fee. And where does that money go? It goes directly to anti-poaching units. So that, and what is an anti-poaching unit? It specifically protects these animals against people coming in there and just hunting it out of season and just at their will for whatever their trophy, the ivory, the horn, or whatever. Yeah, and I think to wrap things up today, we may have had an intention of talking about more controversial topics with regard to guns and ownership of guns. But I think what we ended up talking about is the fact that hunting really is a matter of conservation, and those that do it responsibly, which are most hunters, really do contribute to the conservation of land and to the conservation of the species of animals they hunt. So for that, I appreciate and respect what you do. And for those that don't hunt, like me, that's okay too.
Excuse me, got choked on my nice Opus here. So I even from you put value on animals, that's when, or you put value on anything, that's when it becomes protected. It's a postcard of that hunt.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us on Two Guys on a Porch today.
Come back and join us. Like and subscribe. We have some great episodes coming out. We'll see you again next time.
Life is much better with friends, a drink and cigar, and some Two Guys on a Porch swag.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at twoguysonaporch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag